fabulous host, Positively Suzanne, and I'm so excited to be in the studio today. I have with me Miss Nikki Pena. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. For all our loyal subscribers and viewers, just want to say thank you so much for tuning in week after week. I really appreciate it. We have 1 week left in April, and then we have shows through May and June, and then we take the summer off, and then we're back brand new. So I'm really excited about that. Let's shout out our executive producer, Paul Anderson, for making the magic happen week after week. I am always so grateful and humbled when I have an opportunity to sit in the studio and chat with amazing individuals. And I am really excited to have you in the studio with me today. The first time I met you, I was through the Leadership Booster cohort, and you came to speak and just moved me to tears, your story. And, I'm really excited that you're on the show today, just for many reasons. I think the hope that you're going to give to our audience and, the ones that are listening and the ones that's going to watch it at a later time. And, you have some really exciting news and, something that I'm looking forward to for you to share and to highlight. But just wanted to say thank you for coming. I don't take it lightly when folks come on the show and really share their life, because I think it's brave personally, to just own our story, own our narrative, and just say,
Yeah.
I'm here
Yeah.
and I'm taking up space. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, especially during Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And I remember speaking at Leadership Booster. It's one of my favorite things to do every year, actually,
Yeah.
is get to meet with the new class of Leadership Booster. I can always really be myself and be vulnerable, and I've always been. It's always been such a safe space for me, even though I don't know and any of the people in the room. It's just the environment that they cultivate. I really enjoy coming. And yeah, so Sexual Assault Awareness Month, I think, today and every day, I'm one of those people that talks about it all the time.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to change anything if we don't name it and acknowledge it and dismantle it.
No, absolutely. And we got to shout out Karen Pelletier, truly a girl's girls. She mentioned I love her. Karen, that's your face, Pelletier. And inside joke. But she is fantastic. I'm glad that she brings you back every year just to talk about it, because it's such a important topic. And you highlight that it's sexual awareness, sexual Assault Awareness Month. Say that 5 times high. And, the importance of us talking about it and making it so normal that young girls who are currently in that situation, who have had that situation happen to them, feel comfortable having that conversation and speaking about it. Because one of the reasons why it continues to permeate is because it's not talked about as often. And, oftentimes, there's shame attached to it when there is no shame on behalf of the victims. There is only shame on behalf of the perpetrator. And I think the more we talk about it, the more we create these safe spaces, the more we, invite sexual abuse survivors to speak at different events and just different platforms, because we know that it's no respecter of person, of color, of race, of culture. It happens.
Yeah.
It really and truly does.
Yeah.
So thank you for, being open to sharing your story far and wide.
Yeah. It's always interesting to me during Sexual Assault Awareness Month. There's a lot of conversations, and even with sexual assault prevention work, right? We do a lot of work around helping young girls stay safe, right? And what can they do to it's essentially what can you do to prevent this, right? Don't wear that, or don't walk over there, or don't drink that, right? Yet we're not teaching young men not to perpetrate, which is that's where we,
because we're not doing it to ourselves,
right. So it's it's always so interesting to me that it's always hyper victim focused. And for a long time, I held a lot of shame around what happened to me, because a lot of the violence that I experienced was within systems of prostitution. And so there was this piece of it where I was walking and I was willingly getting into those cars, right? Or I was going into those hotel rooms. I was taking money. And so for a long time, I felt like I did that and I caused that, right? And it took me a long time to unpack that. Like, trauma like exists and moves through generations, right? And you know, I, you know, within prostitution, also it's like very hard to report. You know, there's a million, we can talk about all the reasons women don't report, but especially when you're prostituted. This last time, so I was sober for 9 years, and I had a relapse, and I again was sexually assaulted within prostitution. And I remember the police came to the hospital, and they basically looked at me like, what do you want us to do about this, right? And it was just, I'm like telling them what happened, and it's like almost like they didn't believe me. They thought I was trying to manipulate the system, and it's like, if a woman's reporting sexual assault, it's because it happened. Less than 3% of sexual assault cases are false, right? So if somebody's telling you something happened,
chances are it happened.
And first thing we need to do in order to
believe women. Yeah.
You know?
Believe women. Well, I'm so glad. I know it wasn't an easy road for you to get to this level where you're able to speak about it. And I think, you know, our story is for us, but it's also for others, right? It allows young girls or women who are going through it to see that there is another side. They can come through it. And the sad thing is, I think regardless of where you are, just we're not believed. And I think the conversation is happening a lot right now. I don't know if you've seen recently in the news, there's been a lot of femicide on Black women being killed by their partners. And, you know, I think they're centering it around the men, the perpetrators. And you're right. We are told as women not to wear too short a skirt, not to show legs, not to, and if we teach men, our boys, and you know, do not say not all men, and whoever is listening, don't say not all men, because if it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. But if we teach them, if a woman says no, it's a no. If they don't want to be with you, it's okay, like just to walk away. And you know, again, don't put anything in their drink, don't you know, and just all these things. Are we teaching young men what it is to be respectful? Like, we are taught not to get abused, but what if the abusers didn't abuse us?
Right. And you know, it's interesting. I used to teach a sex buyer like demand reduction program, essentially. And so it was for men that had paid to access in a sting operation, tried to pay to access a prostitute woman's body. And so I'd go to these things, and it's like, you know, it always struck me. So they had a 4-hour class on a Saturday, right? A Saturday morning. Now, when I got arrested for prostitution, same charge, because it's the same charge for both the buyer and the person that's being prostituted. I would go to jail for 6 months, right? And they get a 4-hour class on a Saturday. It's like, just the weight of that. And for so long, and I think now, for a while, for a long time, how Worcester addressed the issue of prostitution was to arrest the prostituted women, right? We did nothing to address any of the underlying factors that were causing them to be on that street corner, be that pimps, be that substance use disorder, homelessness, poverty, trauma, right? All of those underlying factors that, like, you can arrest them for the day, they're out the same night, and guess where they're going? Right back to the block, because we've done nothing to address any of those things. And so there was like a lot of work that was done. You know, I want to champion other survivors that like did this work in this community before me to get to that place. And, you know, the chief of police basically said, I'm not going to put female officers at risk in sting operations. And so there was a huge article that came out in the New England Investigative Journal. It's called The Gender Divide. And it looked at the inequality in arrest between women and those buying. And we were the worst in the state, right? City-wise. And so after that article came out, they had to really kind of backtrack on, we're not going to do that right now. Now they had to step forward and do it. But even when I see the way, like I am fortunate enough, like I work with an organization called Equitas, and I've been able to train for like OVC, Office of Victims of Crime. Um, and I go all over the country talking about this, and it's so interesting to me that like we are still so far behind here, you know, and you know, we're still not addressing the root
The root
causes
cause.
of
Yeah.
everything, right? We're just pulling bodies out of the water, right? Instead of going upstream and finding out why they're falling in. So, um, yeah, so it's interesting to me. I really hope that we'll continue to like be like, and that's one of the things I like about Leadership Worcester, because it's like you're educating like the next young group of professionals that can hopefully say, you know what I mean, like that they want this addressed as a priority, right? Because though I don't have shame around my story, at times I don't want to be the only voice out there.
No,
Right?
absolutely
It's
not.
exhausting,
I'm
right?
sure.
I would love for people to show up at city council and be like, hey, like,
Yeah.
I didn't have this experience, but women are experiencing this in our community, and like we need you to commit to changing it, you know? Because, you know, they unfortunately they just kind of brush our voices off, you know. And we need powerful allies that will step in and stand with us.
No, absolutely. And, well, thank you for sharing that. And I do believe that through Leadership Poster, I learned a lot that day that I didn't know, because we take certain things for granted. You don't know what you don't know. But I think once you're aware, you've got to figure out, how you can become an ally, because I think it affects all of us, right?
Yeah.
So, what was the point that you are like, okay, I want to share my story. I'm ready to
Yeah.
share my story.
So it was actually, I was arrested May 5th of 2014. I was arrested again. I was arrested for a crime called common street walking. So if they see me walking in Maine South, they can essentially arrest me for just taking a walk, because I have a history of prostitution. So I was actually arrested for walking in Maine South, and I was sentenced to 6 months. And there was a big sting, and I remember being in the van on the way to jail, and like people were hysterical, they were crying, and I was like, guys, we get a hot meal when we get there, right? Like
Yeah.
it become so normal to
Yeah.
me that I was so desensitized to it that
Wow.
I was okay with being incarcerated. And so I only did 4 months because you had good time. And when I came out, a lot of everybody was telling me, you need to get help for your substance use disorder. You need to go to 12-step meetings. You need to do, and I had tried that over and over and over again, and it just wasn't my pathway. Right? There's lots of pathways to recovery, and I found mine through social justice work. And so another survivor that was kind of championing the work out here said, Nikki, I'm going to a meeting with the city about prostitution. You should come with me. And I went, and, the first time I didn't say anything. And then she took me to another meeting. And, then I started speaking up, and I was like, wow, like it was the first time in my life I felt like my voice had value, and I had value outside of my body, right? And so I continued to show up at those meetings, because recognizing that I was the expert, right?
Yeah.
And I did have the answer. And it was at that point where I kind of stepped forward and said, like, I'm not going to hold shame for what happened to me, right? It's not who I am. And that's why I'm like very careful with the language I even use, right? Like I always say prostituted woman, because it's not prostitute, because it's not what she is, it's what happened to her, right? And so once I was at a conference and I heard somebody say that, and I was like, wow, that was a moment for me. I actually went outside the conference and just sobbed, because I was like, holy, like that clarified it for me. It was like, it's not who I am.
Absolutely.
It's something I experienced. And the conjunction of those two things, like being exposed to the movement and like other survivors speaking up and seeing other women come forward without shame, really allowed me to stand in my power. And start talking about it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I appreciate you sharing. Thank you. And I know that has led to many different things, but it's led to something that's very near and dear to your heart, and it's recent, and it's Her Way Home.
Yes.
So let's talk about how that came about.
Sure. So I had founded a previous organization, and when I relapsed, I separated from the organization. We were separated, um, and the shelter beds in the city were decreasing, right? And me and a colleague, her name is Jillian Keen. She's the co-founder and co-executive director with me. She'd be a great guest for you too. But we founded Her Way Home because we want to open a low barrier shelter. So last March, City Manager Batista invested some dollars for us to open a low barrier harm reduction shelter specific for prostituted women. And at first we were like, not sure like that we were going to be able to make it work because harm reduction work is so hard, and it's you really have to have the right people there. I do well with drug addicted prostituted women. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I thrive in that kind of in that chaos. Like, I can be a steadfast resource for them. And Jillian as well. It's like that's kind of where our roots are, is in harm reduction work. And so City Manager Batista invested some dollars, and we were able to open a program called Her House initially. It was a program under SMOC, and it was 16 beds, and it was low barrier. So what that means is we were removing barriers that typically prevent women from accessing shelter. So things like having a curfew at 6 o'clock, right? Like and it's funny because it seems so like, who is home by 6 o'clock? Right? No, nobody I know, right?
I wish.
I wish I was in my bed at 6 o'clock.
Me
really?
too,
Right?
yes.
But the reality is like trying to get things done that you need done for the day, right? And get back there to have to be inside by 6. And, for prostituted women, there's this additional layer of, I need to be on the street when men are out there. So that means when men are on their way to work, when they're on their lunch break, and when they're on their way home from work, right? In order to survive and make the money I need to have, to either give to my trafficker or to use for substances. And so setting a curfew for 6 o'clock made it so that we were essentially keep building barriers to keep people out instead of allowing them to come in. And so we removed things like curfew. We offered things like lockers so they could lock up drugs and weapons, right? We explained that it was a space for them to rest and come when they were done with their drugs, not to use on site, right? And we actually had, at the end of it, we had almost all of the women connected to medicated assisted treatment, which is like methadone and Suboxone for their opiate use disorder. Some women were housed, and then the day what happened was that site was closing, and we were absorbed by SMOC, so they shifted all of their shelters around to make just a women's shelter that me and Jillian now co-lead over there. And the day we showed up, so we only had 16 beds, right? So I was like, I don't know that they're all going to come with us. This is like a totally different vibe over here, right? Yeah. We had 22 women waiting at her house to come with us. They were like, we just kept putting up beds because we were like, well, we can't tell them no, right?
Can't turn them away,
can't
right?
Turn them away. And so recognizing that there is still a real need for that, right now in particular, every winter we do this emergency shelter planning, right? And we add extra beds online for people so that they can be sheltered during the winter, right? But we close them at the end of April, right? And it's like, at what degree or temperature do we think it's okay for people to be sleeping outside? Because I'm going to tell you, it's cold in the summer at night. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Trying to find a doorway. I've done it. I did it for 10 years, And so we're taking all these beds offline. And the reality is like our homeless population is increasing.
It has.
And so, we don't want this visible prostitution activity out on our streets in the summer and all of that. But then we're taking away resources from a population that really needs them. And, the reality is like prostituted women are much more likely to die in a homicide, right? They are much more likely to overdose. once they've overdosed once.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're pulling these resources away. And so me and Jillian are like, no, we're going to open another resource.
Mm.
Um, we're going to help women find their way home. That's what we're going to do. And so allowing them, like, to be able to help create a space that feels safe for them, right? Like,
Mm.
that's why the survivor led component of the work is so important, because
Mm-hmm.
who knows better than those who have experienced
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
And so our goal right now, we provide peer support, court advocacy, peer accompaniment, medical accompaniment,
Mm.
support groups. But our goal is to open a low threshold shelter for
Mm-hmm.
survivors by survivors.
Okay. And then this would be all year,
Yes.
all
Oh,
month.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Yeah. Well, I've always thought about things like that. I think about like during Thanksgiving and Christmas, there's
Yeah.
so much emphasis placed on feeding folks and getting gifts and
Yeah.
all of that. I'm like, that's all good and well, but what about after?
Yeah.
It's like they are hungry before Thanksgiving, they're
Yeah.
hungry after Christmas.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, like, and I get it, kids want the toys, but I'm like, I think let's just help them in
Yeah.
January. Let's feed them in February
Yeah.
versus like make sure they get this at Christmas.
Yeah.
I get it, but
Yeah, and I understand
I
like the
do.
additional need for like beds in the winter, but like
But
I was sharing with you, like summer comes with its own
it
challenges.
does.
We don't have places for people to get water. We don't
Mm,
have places for people to get out of the sun.
mm.
We drive around on those really hot days and we just like handing out water and
Yeah,
sunscreen. Like, here, put some
yeah,
sunscreen on.
yeah.
People experience heat stroke.
Mm.
There's a real correlation with that violence increases when temperatures increase as well.
Well, no,
And so,
absolutely. You're ear
um,
trouble.
yeah, yeah. So it's all the more reason that we
Mm,
need a safe place for people. And you'll see, the unfortunate reality is when the weather gets nicer, we tend to leave programs or leave
mm-hmm.
shelters, right? Because we're like,
Absolutely.
oh, you know, it's sometimes you feel like you're treated better on the streets than you are in some of these programs, right?
Yeah.
But so there's more women in need of services, not
Mm-hmm.
less, right?
Mm,
And so how can we create like a real network, a safety, like,
mm-hmm.
and safety for our
Mm-hmm.
most marginalized women,
Mm.
and that's by funding and operating programs like Her Way Home.
Absolutely. So, are there a lot of programs like this in Worcester? Or,
No, so actually, right now there's a couple of programs that are resources for substance use people with substance use disorder, which intersects with houselessness and prostitution and
mm,
violence. And they're actually closing some programs. So it's like we're decreasing our shelter beds. These programs are closing, more people are on the street, and we don't have we're not ready with a response yet.
so what do we do with the people? So,
Yeah.
like, there's more people that need it,
Hmm.
but there's less that's available in
Right.
it, because we didn't have enough
Yeah.
and we're closing. So, what's the answer? Like, what are they doing? What are we
Yeah.
doing?
I so I've always been able to, like, in fairness to the city, I want to say that I've always been able to work in good partnership with them.
Good,
Like, they've been able to support the programs when we needed them, and I
good,
am incredibly grateful for that.
good.
But like, I'd like to see, like, they said they were going to start talking about planning for next winter's emergency
Mm,
shelters and things like
okay.
that. And it's like, let's stop doing that and
Mm,
start focusing on like consistent resources that we need
mm-hmm. Year round.
365
Yes.
365 days a year, right?
Yeah.
Because people need services when they need services, and if we don't have them on demand, we're going to lose people.
No, absolutely. Between the gap between if we end at April and start back in the winter, I mean, what happened to them in the interim?
Yeah.
The gap is huge.
Yeah.
Like people need services, like you said, every single day. And I'm so grateful that you have a space like that where folks are, can do. And it's not an easy thing because trauma-based work is, oh, it's emotionally, physically,
Yeah.
mentally draining, financially draining.
Yeah.
There's a lot. And I think I don't know if there's funding out there. I do know a lot of organizations that I'm in
Mhm.
touch with. There's a lot of challenges to funding
Yeah.
for a lot of things right now.
Especially
So,
with this administration.
oh
It's like,
God, girl.
yeah, I know. I know.
Yeah. So, but you can't stop doing the work just because some fools are in
Right.
charge
No.
and saying that, let's not put any money to this because,
Yeah.
it's. So, how did you come up with Her Way Home? I have an idea,
Yeah.
but
So Her Way Home, well, we started the initial program that we opened was called Her House.
yeah,
And I it took me a long time before I was actually able to feel safe in my own home, right? And feel safe in my own body, right?
mm-hmm.
And so Her Way Home is more about coming back to yourself than it is about coming back to a physical location,
Yeah,
right? And I'm really grateful for other survivors that do that work with us. That the women that come in, they finally feel like, wow, I don't have to be ashamed of this. I can be
yes,
myself here.
yeah.
Like they're not judging me, right? Or like, hey, you're
Mm.
looking a little messy right now. We love
Yeah.
you. No judgment, right? But like maybe you should take a nap.
Yes.
You know. But it's really about coming home to yourself, right? And finally feeling safe in your own body.
Mm.
And learning to stand in your power and that you can do anything
Mm.
that you set your mind to.
That is an absolute beautiful message. Absolutely. And, honestly, safety, I think it's something that we all want
Yeah.
and we all assume that we have. And like, I've been in spaces and places where I didn't feel safe,
Yeah.
even for a short time. So,
Mm-hmm.
not to feel safe at any time, to live with that consistently for years
Yeah.
must have been terrifying.
You know, I, so when I first got out of the life, I did things like, now I look back and I used to hum all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I rock.
Mm-hmm.
I was a rocker.
Yeah.
And those are all things that my brain had me do in order to distract me from how afraid I was, right?
Wow.
And when you learn about it like that was a survival mechanism. And sometimes
Mm.
still when like me and my husband will watch a scary movie, he'll be like, "You're humming." I'm like,
Yeah.
"I'm sorry."
Yes.
But those little things like you don't, you pretend like you're okay out there,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the reality is you're scared to death.
Yeah.
I used to do things like play games like with like translating song lyrics into Spanish while I was walking down the street,
Okay.
like counting license plates, like having to find certain letters on license plates. But all of that was like literally
To trick your
helping me to
brain.
survive,
Yeah.
trick my brain into feeling like I was okay.
Yeah.
Because it is brutal out there. The reality is like you don't know if the next car you get in if they're going to kill you, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to assess within 3 seconds of closing that car door or walking into that hotel room if you need to get out of there, right?
Mm.
The violence is so you live with it, it becomes normalized, right?
Yeah.
Like I was on another podcast and I talked about a really horrific experience I had. Um, and I got out of the car and I ran back to Main Street, and I was so grateful that at least I had money for drugs, right? And then I did drugs and I went right back to
Mm.
the street, right? I dusted myself off,
Yeah.
and like that becomes normalized. And so when we look at people when they come in and like where they're exhibiting behaviors that like we're like, whoa, what are you doing, right? Like most
Mm-hmm.
of that is trauma,
Yeah.
right? Presenting itself. And it took me a long time. Like there were still nights where I get up in the middle of the night and I
Mm.
walk around my house and I check the doors and the windows and make sure
Mm.
they're all locked.
Wow.
Something just it maybe I'm dreaming. I
Mm.
don't know what causes it, but I just have this like
Mm.
incessant need to go make sure my kids are safe, my husband's safe, the
Mm-hmm.
doors are locked, the windows are locked,
Mm.
everything's okay, and I'll walk around my whole house doing that before I'll be able to go back to sleep. Like
Wow.
this trauma, and also like trauma is passed through generations. Even parenting my son with all the trauma that I have,
Mm.
and I'll give an example of that. When my son was about 2 years old, I kept telling him to stop. I said, stop. No, he was hitting me, right? And I was like, no, stop it, stop it, stop it. and he wouldn't stop it. And I actually had to like get up, put him behind the baby gate, go outside and call my husband and say, I can't do this right now. And at the time I didn't realize why and what, but it was triggering my trauma, right? Of like me saying no to someone and being ignored over and over and over again, right? And my 2-year-old triggered that in me. And I had to go outside and take a break, right? Because I was like, I can't do this. And now it's like I see how I parent from a lot of times from trauma or from regret or, you know, but it's like until we start looking at this as like a multi-generational like healing, right? And healing within communities, we're just passing that legacy of trauma on
all the way down.
all the way down.
Absolutely. Generational trauma is a real thing.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has a different story, but regardless of the story, trauma sadly is handed down more frequently than wealth, right? It absolutely is. So is there any coping mechanisms or techniques that you utilize that helps you? Have you ever had therapy?
I do.
Okay,
I still have a therapist.
No, because I mean, I'm listening to you and I'm like, she's had to have therapy because how did you get this enlightened and and not perfect? Because believe me, we all have moments, but you must have had therapy to be able to address and listen and recognize that. And I think one of the things, right, when we're dealing with ourselves, we have to learn to be truly honest with ourselves and recognize that, right, I'm acting the fool right now. Let me just rein it in and do that. So what are some of the things that you have done, to cope?
So I did a therapy called EMDR. It's like I forget. I can never remember what it stands for. It's like eye movement desensitization. Anyway,
it's fine. There's so many acronyms.
It's a trauma. It's specific for trauma, and it actually like has you unpack the negative messages that you're getting from memories and trauma, like as if you're on a train driving by that experience, and processing it activates like the left and right part, side of your brain. And I found that incredibly. It was the best thing I could have done for trauma treatment. And then I also see just a regular therapist. I think it's important that we treat mental health like we treat our health, right? I see a doctor regularly, right? I have a therapist. I also like to write. I'm a writer. And that for me has like been such a healing a healing pathway for me. And it's like interesting, like I'll write and then I'll like share it with the women at the shelter and they're like, wow, that like just, you know what I mean? It's like a way to like be able to share with them too, that like healing can look different for everybody. And I do a lot of reading, to be honest. A lot of my knowledge about trauma and trauma work is from reading.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I have a question. It's going to be two-part. So if someone's listening right now and they're experiencing, what you have experienced or something different, and they want to get in touch with Her Way Home because they're local to Worcester. It's going to go national. We're putting that out there.
Yes, it is.
It's going to go national. How do they go about? How do you encourage them to go about that? And the next step is if they're listening, but they're not accessible to this area, what advice would you give them and, how to try to connect your resources? So we'll start with Her Way Home and then we'll go.
If you're local, we have our website. You can contact us right through our website. It's herwayhomeworcester.org. There's a contact us page right there. Reach out. We're very responsive to requests through our website. Our phone number is also on there, so people can just go to herwayhomeworcester.org. And if somebody is not local, I would still encourage them to do the same thing. One of the things that I've been able to do over my time doing this work is meet survivors from all over the world, right? So you may not be here, but I may be able to say, hey, Autumn lives right near you, right? Like you should give her a call, right? And also like knowing, like having somebody that has kind of vetted the resources for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember being sent on, wild goose chases, chasing things all over the city, and then to find out they don't even offer the services that I need.
Wow.
And so, really, just being thoughtful about, and, sometimes they may not really need anything, but they just want to talk to another survivor, and that's okay. Like, we're here for that too, right?
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. And, actually, again, I know it's like the two-part questions, right? So, what, like your support system,
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that you have a support
Yeah.
system because we need a support system. So, if we have a support system, how do we tap into that, right?
Yeah.
And ask for help without feeling that you're a burden.
Yeah.
And for those that doesn't have a support system, I'm assuming they would connect with you
Yeah.
guys. And like you said, you might not be where they are, but you have contacts all
Mm-hmm.
over, and just speaking to someone else who had gone through the same
Yeah.
situation, would be helpful and impactful.
Yeah. I have an amazing support system, and like I had mentioned earlier, like when I first exited the life, I was really kind of forced to go to 12-step meetings, and I was told I needed sponsors and mentors and things like that. And like all of that is fine for some people. But I found that I really needed positive women in my life, whether they had substance use disorder or not, right? Like
Mm.
that wasn't relative.
Yeah.
Were they kind, right?
Mm.
Um, and could I connect with them on a relationship, in a relationship
Yeah.
way? And so I have really great women in my life, like probably like 4 or 5 of them that I know I could call um,
Mm.
through anything,
I love that.
and then also like my family is a huge support for me.
Good.
My a lot of my family's down in North Carolina, but like even when I had my relapse a few years ago, my dad, first thing he did was come right up,
Mm-hmm.
to come up and help my husband take care of our kids and stuff. So
Mm.
like they are there for me in more ways than I can say.
Mm.
Um, my stepmother and my father have been um, just invaluable support for me as an adult. You think your kids grow up, and then
Yeah, like you're
it's like,
done. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, no,
no,
no, dad,
no.
no.
I'm stuck. You're stuck with me for
Yeah,
life,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
So, and then also like in community, I think
Mm,
we heal in community, and like
mm,
I love some of the women in this community, like
yeah.
I really do.
There's some fabulous women.
Fabulous women.
Yes.
And it's kind of cool also, like getting to like work with them in different ways, like even
Yes.
like Jennifer Hernandez, who did our website for us.
Oh, did she?
Um,
Hey, Jen. She's
yeah,
the one
but
that connected me to this space.
oh,
Small world.
our daughters are friends.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that.
Jen did say hi.
Yeah.
So did Diane.
Oh, hi,
Diane.
Jen. Hi,
Hi,
Diane.
Diane. Another fabulous woman.
There's some phenomenal
Yeah.
women in this
Yeah.
community. Like, I'm just blown away
Yeah.
sometimes, just by the just the sheer love. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes we don't recognize how precious it
Yeah.
is to have women that you could
Yeah.
certainly count on. Not that you take it for granted, but
No.
sometimes you don't know how connected you are to someone
Right.
until there is a moment that you need a friend,
Yeah.
and they just show up, no
Yeah.
questions asked. They do
Yeah.
the thing, and it's not, no lingering, no nothing. They
Yeah.
just do it, and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
And that, but I think, you intentional about it. Like, I think you treat people well,
Yeah.
and, people will show up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I went through that awful time in my life where I had relapse. I was relapsed for about 6 months.
mm,
And there were some women in this community like Maddie Castile,
mm,
Deirdre Calvert, just women that were incredibly
yeah.
good to me and showed up at psych units, detoxes.
Wow.
They didn't care. They were like, I'm here for you.
I'm there. I love
and,
that.
And it was life-changing for me to have
Alright.
that support.
No, I love that. Like, you spoke last year at our I Got You Sis
Mhm.
Summit, which is Embrace the Power of
I love that.
Sisterhood. And, like, just one of the things I was going to ask you about, just the power of sisterhood.
Yeah.
Right, like just different women in different spaces. I remember when you were coming in the studio and I was saying to you that I was looking for a space, and like somebody mentioned my name, and that's how we end up with the studio. It was Jen Hernandez, and like just I don't think people realize what blessings they are in your life sometimes, and they might think it's something simple, right? But it's a big deal. And
I mean, even designing our website, like our website was everything. Like we poured our heart and soul out, and she took
did
that
it.
and
She
did
did the thing.
you know,
She did the thing. Yes.
And so there are amazing, and I can't speak enough about the power of sisterhood. I mean, that was the whole purpose in me starting this work and her way home. When I did have that relapse, I found myself the last day I used in a trap house with some of the women that I had actually helped. And they kept saying to me, Nikki, you don't belong here. Go get help. Go get help. And I was like, you don't belong here either, right?
Yeah.
They couldn't see that for themselves yet, though. But I took that, and I did. I walked out of that house, and I went and I got help, and I have been sober since, thank God.
Amen.
But, like even in my worst moments, there were women on the street that were like, Nikki, you deserve the same support you gave us.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, you know what I mean? Like even in our darkest moments, we showed up for each other in ways that we could, right?
No, absolutely.
Surviving the way we were surviving.
No, absolutely. Like, we got to be good to people.
Yeah.
Like, we got to be good to people. Like, look at that. Like, even in your darkness, there's lights that you had put out. Like, you had started, not even realizing that you were lighting things along your path. And, when you're in a dark moment, they lit your way home. So you were able to find your way home.
Yeah.
So I'm just so grateful that you're out there doing the work and really helping others. So anything, did we already have the grand opening?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
I was like, did we have the grand opening?
We're still trying to find a space right now.
Okay,
so,
still trying to find the space. So how can the community support? Money's always needed.
Yes,
but
money's always needed. We also, so in the summer.
Talk to us.
So in the summer, a lot of times it's so hot, and like things like flip-flops, we need underwear, deodorant, sunscreen, all those like little items, because we do a lot of street outreach. Because especially in the summer, right? Like when businesses close, from like 5 to 10, right? It's the streets are like wild, full of people, and they don't have anything, right? And so I've even tried to figure out ways we can get women involved from the shelter. Like, hey, do you guys, if I get the stuff, will you guys put together the care packages? Wow. So they feel like they're a part of it too. Absolutely. You know what I mean? So they're helping the next sister because they're sheltered right now, but they can help somebody that's unsheltered, right?
Absolutely.
So we always in need of supplies like that. Also, like, just like we're having an event, SMOC and the city of Worcester, the Department of Public Health are hosting an event called At the Crux of It, and it's a community conversation about the intersection of prostitution and homelessness. So that's the 28th at 9:30 at City Hall. So
April or May?
April.
Okay.
Next week.
Like next Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, next Tuesday. It's going to be great. So I think getting involved in those conversations, showing up and supporting survivor-led work, elevating the voices of survivors, not like making sure that like you are intentionally bringing people in that have different experiences than you. I can't tell you how many programs were designed without people with lived experience involved in the process. For example, somebody told me they were going to provide long-term mental health treatment to prostituted women that were still actively using substances. And I was like, no, you're not. That's not possible. I love that you want to do that. But if you can get her to come in to see a clinician long-term, like,
good luck.
You've got all the answers, and I want to hire you. But, just making sure that we're like consistently like checking in and having people with lived experience like informing our programs and making safe spaces for people to share about their experience.
No, absolutely. I think it's important. I think, it doesn't only have to be survivor-led, right? But I think it's important to hear from the survivors.
Yeah.
I've always said to folks, like, if you're building something, because, I'm a Black woman, that's who I am. Like, but if you're building something for Black women, speak to a Black woman.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you know, don't assume you know what I need.
Right.
So and
It's the same, yeah.
it's just so, yeah, absolutely. Like if your work is centered around survivors,
Yeah.
you have to speak to some survivors to
Yeah.
truly get what they need, what helped you,
Yep.
what turned the corner, and you know, words that cause harm,
Yeah.
like words that cause harm,
Yep.
things that cause harm. And you know, as you said, when you have that experience, when you're speaking to these survivors, they come in and you know the reason that it's trauma behind it, and
Mhm.
they're acting a certain way
Yeah.
because you have had that experience. You understand it come from it.
Yeah.
Where others is like just cut it out,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
right,
Yeah. Stop it. You
like
can't be here if you're behaving like that. It's like,
exactly. And but it's deeper than that.
yeah.
Like it's deeper than
Yeah.
that. So no, well, thank you for sharing that. And you know, community, you heard, you know, and they're able to just go on the website and find
Yeah,
out where
just fill out
the
a contact sheet, and I will get back to you. Mayor Julian will get back to you. We'll meet, pick up the supplies.
all right.
Yeah.
And how often do you deliver the surprise, or when do?
So we're starting to do outreach. At least we go every week at this
Oh,
point.
wow.
As now the weather's good, there's more people out on the streets. It's kind of just checking in with people, letting them know that we're there, and yeah.
All right, thank you. So I want to make sure that I give you the platform to share all that you can about Her Way Home, or you know, anything as it being Sexual Abuse Survivors Month. Want to make sure that you know I've given you that space to share. I want to talk a little bit about joy after, because you
Yeah.
know we have to find our joy, you know, through it all, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the beauty of life, right? But I also want to give reverence to the moment and the topic that we're talking about. Make sure that you have the space and the freedom to, you know, talk to the audience and to share your story, and certainly the journey that you've been on, and that's been a blessing to others.
Yeah. Um, you know, I think I'm really excited about where we are in the development of Her Way Home. I'm excited. I learned a lot of lessons creating the first organization that I created. And, you know, oftentimes in this work, people experience catastrophic burnout, right? And so I actually just read a book recently, Trauma Stewardship. It's an incredible book. But like, how do we, as people that are traumatized, show up for other people that are traumatized and carry that, right? And so, you know, making sure that we're providing support to leaders of organizations, because though they're out there speaking and you know we you know are acknowledging how brave they are, some of the stuff that they're sharing is scary. And you know it can be re-traumatizing for people.
Absolutely.
And so like when we're taking on big systems like the church and the police, and you know making sure that we are actually showing up and supporting people through that. We're looking for a location. You know, when we find that, we'll need all the help. You know, volunteers to help us get it all cleaned up and painted and fixed up. You know, right now it's more outreach supplies and things like that, and also like we're growing our board as well, and being strategic about bringing on new board members and things like that. So if something like you are interested in helping with Her Way Home and in that capacity, also please reach out.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you. No, there's so many different opportunities to go on, and I love the fact that you said, you know, like we have to provide support for the leaders, right, who are leading these organizations, because I think any leading most nonprofit, it's challenging, but trauma-based nonprofit, it's excruciating, and you can get re-triggered, re-traumatized. You can certainly get burnout, because the world is heavy. Like the world is heavy and there's a lot going on. So just make sure that you're taking care of you in the interim, right? So what are we doing to take care of Nikki while we're saving the world?
So I get up every morning an hour before my kids get up. So I have that time just to myself to have a cup of coffee, do a meditation, and kind of prepare myself for the day. I enjoy reading. I play softball on the weekends, which I have a lot of fun doing that with Hector Reyes' house.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and you know, I'm looking forward to the summer and being able to
Mm,
like spend some time with my kids. We put a little pool up in the backyard,
nice.
and really just kind of slow down for a little
Mm,
while, you know,
okay.
because it's, you know, when it's wintertime, it's like go, 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 go. It's
All the
like,
time.
yeah. And so it's nice to be able to kind of take space.
Mm,
And like I said, I love reading.
mm.
And so my plan is to read a few good books this summer.
Do you only read
Spend
like
a
to expand the mind, or do you read
no,
for
no.
fun? Okay.
I actually just got into some fantasy books. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. Fourth Wing, Iron Flame.
yeah,
I'll give you some
yeah. There we
recommendation.
go.
Yolanda Ramos, my bestie, book bestie, recommended this book, and it was like fantasy. It was like my really first foray into it,
Oh,
and
okay.
so I was like Fourth Wing. Now I'm like obsessed with the book. It's like
Yeah.
5 book series.
Oh,
I've
good.
read 3.
Uh,
The author is busy having the time of her life and
yeah.
hasn't written the 4th book yet.
Uh,
The horror.
yeah. I
And
know.
but it's nice to escape
Yeah.
sometime and
Yeah.
just focus on lands where there's dragons and
Yes.
flying and all these
Yeah.
things, and
Yeah.
before we come back to the real
They're the
world
real world. Yes.
and
I
do the
do
things.
also love to read about social justice movements too, though,
One
and
hundred
feminist
percent, like
movements.
absolutely,
Um,
100%.
yeah, but to escape, it's been fantasy lately.
Well,
So
no, absolutely. There was, I was a part of this Black Woman book club, and there was this book that I had read, and I think it was called Hood Wellness, Drowning on Dry Land, and it was about like the trauma Black woman experience, like
yeah,
just living and showing up in this
yep,
world, and I mean, it was like the stories, and I think the thing with when you read a book like that,
hmm
right, and you have experienced things like that,
yeah,
you can the stories resonate with you because you're like, oh my God, this is my life,
yeah,
right? But the beauty is, like, there's joy on the
yeah,
other side, but I think we have to be intentional about
yeah.
that joy.
It's interesting that when I had mentioned earlier, I do some training with this organization called Equitas, and one of the things that they've built into their training is when we're talking about like services and things that survivors need, one of the things is access to joy,
Mm,
right? Like we always think about like the bare necessities, right?
yes,
Like they have a bed,
absolutely.
but have they had
Yes,
fun? Like
yeah.
so at when we had her house over on Boylston Street, like I bought cornhole and like
Yeah.
we'd be out
Oh, I
there
love that
playing
game.
cornhole, right? Like
Yes.
you don't even get it. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're experiencing homelessness, but they also deserve to have some fun and like,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Like, and so they included that in all their material now. It says like access to joy because that's such an important, like we want people to live their best life worth living, right?
Absolutely.
And they need to learn what brings them joy because a lot of times we don't even know, right?
Mm,
Like I had to figure out at 34 years old what I like to do because I had
yeah.
no idea.
Yeah.
I liked what you told me to like, right?
Yeah.
I was who you paid me to be.
Yeah.
And so getting out, it was like trying all kinds of things. Like I tried rowing, hate it, right?
Rowan.
Yeah, won't be doing that anymore. Softball is my jam. I love that.
Okay. Okay.
But you know, I had to go out and experience things
Yeah.
and figure out, like, okay, like,
Yeah.
no, this sucks. I don't want to do this again, right? I've
It's
found some things I love
it's
too.
fun. It's like I mean, there's some things I know I won't do. Like
Yeah,
if it's like, oh, I went swimming with sharks, and I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
like I just won't try
yeah,
it.
yeah,
But like,
yeah.
I mean, that could be their joy,
Yeah,
right?
right.
It's like, yeah. But no, I love that though. I do like the fact that because I think we cannot forget joy.
No.
And even, there is truly some sad statistics in regards to, trauma survivors, sexual abuse survivors, substance abuse survivors, right? And I think for me, like just for them to experience any joy
Yeah.
in the interim. A few years ago, I lost my dad, and I remember like all I focused on was like the day that he passed, like that he had the stroke, like it
Mm.
was a good day.
Yeah.
Like it was a good day, because there's some days that we've had some rough days,
Yeah.
and because taking care of an elder parent is tough sometimes. But I remember I found him, I think, I don't know if it was Bonanza or something. He's old. And like on the TV and things like that, and it was just so important to me, and I was so happy and so grateful that I'm like, yeah, I think that was a good day. Experienced joy that day,
Yeah.
and it was brutal, but
Yeah.
like when the grief is so hard that like I can't breathe,
Yeah.
like I focus on that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important, that I get it's not gonna, we're not gonna solve the challenges they're facing in a day, but a little moment of letting them play cornhole,
Yeah, having
or
some fun,
having some fun, water balloon fights.
Yes, that's actually a great plan.
That's it. It's
That'll
in the
keep people
summer.
cool,
It is so much fun. Don't
Yeah.
touch my hair, but yes.
Yeah. Ah,
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm so glad that certainly, and I will give you some book recommendations
Awesome.
after. And one of the things I do like to ask folks about bucket list items, like vacation spots that they would like, that they've visited or that they would like to visit.
I would love to go to Italy. Actually, I've not had the chance to really travel
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah.
I've gone all over the United States and to Ireland once, but
Yeah.
I really would like to go to Italy, to Florence specifically. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I wouldn't go now with the price of
Yeah,
flights.
no, I'm going.
But-
I can't even drive here with the price of gas.
Oh
right
my
now.
goodness, girl.
I'm gonna start walking.
Like,
everywhere.
listen, like I'm telling folks, you invite me out, come pick me up,
Yeah.
right?
Right. I was like, I can walk there.
Like,
Not
yeah,
bad.
like, so I'm gonna get very fit this
Yes,
summer,
me too.
because we're gonna be walking
Yeah.
everywhere. But yeah, I looked at the prices. I was like, so be a staycation.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
no, Italy is quite beautiful. I do
Yeah.
like to just look at different
Architecture.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Lots of walking.
Yeah.
Wear flats.
Yeah. I
And
would.
wear flats, like the
Yeah.
cobblestone, but just beautiful. And
Yeah.
one of the things I had found there, so I'm not Catholic, but I'm a woman of faith. I'm a Christian, but when I went there, like the faith was just so moving.
Yeah.
We went to see like the Vatican and Vatican City and St. Peter's Basilica and things like that. And I think there was such reverence. And for us, sometimes I just wonder why, if we just focus on like the underlying meaning of faith, which is love,
Love. Yeah.
like that's it. And it truly was moving. I will say that being there and experiencing that was
Yeah.
truly beautiful.
Amazing.
Like, yeah. So, yeah, I'm excited for you to go and
Yeah.
visit and explore. And if
Yeah.
price ever goes down,
Yeah.
we might run into each other in the
Yeah,
crowd.
yeah.
Well, thank you again for coming on, for sharing her way home. Let's make sure that we're checking out the website. We can certainly be allies, share resources. Shout out to all the women who lift other women up.
Yeah.
Just you guys are truly superstars.
Yeah.
Nikki, thank you so much. Shout
you.
out to your co-founder. Truly
Julian,
fulfilling a need
you.
in the community, and truly wish you all the best. I'll figure out how I fit in and making sure that I can be an ally to you guys, because we need more spaces that allows folks to thrive.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you
All
for
right.
having me.
Anytime. Thank you. If you're tuned in, you're watching Sipping Tea with Suzanne, with Positively Suzanne. Shout out to our executive producer, Paul Anderson. Shout out to our guests that tune in week after week. Not guests, viewers who tune in week after week. We truly appreciate you. And, the show truly what it is because of guests like Nikki, who come on and, truly share their story and just inspire so many. Once again, thank you. All right. And until next time, this is Suzanne and
Nikki. Bye.
ta-ta.